All right, let's dive right into this whole thing about government secrecy and UAPs. Unidentified anomalous phenomena. You guys sent in a ton of stuff. Declassified documents and testimonies, historical accounts, all this stuff about what the government knows about UAPs. And basically, you want to know if they're being straight with us or what?
Yeah, it is quite a collection of sources you've provided. Official statements, leaked documents, first-hand accounts from the military and intelligence folks, even analysis from scientists and researchers. It really is a puzzle, isn't it?
It is, and I think one of the first things that kind of jumps out is this feeling that, I don't know, maybe the government is holding back a little. We even have big names like former President Trump hinting at information that hasn't been released.
Right. Back in 2020, there was that podcast where President Trump said he wouldn't talk about what he knows about UAPs, but that it was, quote, very interesting. And then just this past June 2024, he said he's had meetings about it and that people in the know will tell you something's happening.
Yeah. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? And it's not just him. Former CIA Director John Brennan, he also seems to suggest something big might be going on.
Yeah, he did. Back in 2021. He said, it's possible some of these unexplained things we see could be something we just don't understand yet. Maybe even a different form of life.
Wow. And then you've got David Grush, this former intelligence official, dropping some pretty big claims, saying the government has UAP materials, even bodies, and that they've kept Congress totally in the dark.
Grush's claims are pretty serious, and his background in intelligence definitely gives him some credibility. And the fact that he's putting himself out there like this, it suggests that he really believes what he's saying. But one thing I find interesting is how his story, well, it lines up with what other UAP witnesses are saying. And a lot of them have a ton of experience in the military and intelligence communities. You have pilots, radar operators, analysts, all these people. Their job is to be observant and to know what they're looking at. And they're all saying very similar things.
So we've got these hints from officials, a whistleblower claiming the government has physical evidence. And then there's this document you sent me. It talks about this secret program, Immaculate Constellation. What's that all about?
Yeah. Immaculate Constellation is supposed to be this central database for collecting UAP observations from all kinds of sources. Basically, a top secret place for everything the government knows about UAPs, although the Department of Defense denies that it even exists.
Well, that's a little suspicious, isn't it? If this program is real and it's meant to protect national security, why deny it?
Exactly. A source actually came forward after that document was published and said the program is actually controlled by the White House and run by the DOD, specifically to get around legal oversight.
Oh, wow. So what are they hiding? And why?
Makes you wonder, right?
It really does, especially when you think about all the secrecy surrounding UAPs over the years. We have declassified documents showing this pattern going back decades.
Absolutely. One of the most famous examples is this 1953 CIA Robertson panel. They were supposed to figure out if UAPs were a threat. But instead of suggesting more investigation, they said UAPs shouldn't be considered important in intelligence reports. They basically tried to bury the whole thing.
Really? They knew about it, but they tried to downplay it. Why do you think they did that?
Well, that's the big question. We even have a CIA strategy memo from 1953 that talks about plans to discredit UAP witnesses and use ridicule to keep the public from getting interested. It looks like a clear attempt to control the story and keep people in the dark.
It's kind of disturbing, to be honest. It's like they were more worried about what people thought than finding out the truth.
Right. It really makes you question trust and transparency. If the government is willing to withhold information about this, what else are they keeping from us? And why?
And here's where things start to get a little scary. You sent over all these reports, and a lot of them talk about UATs and their interest in nuclear facilities and weapons. It's a little unsettling, to say the least.
Yeah, there have been a lot of documented incidents where UAPs have been seen near nuclear sites. Back in 1964, at Fort Riley, Kansas, witnesses said they saw a large, round object on the ground, guarded by military personnel. And then you have the 1984 incident at the Indian Point nuclear plant, where this big UAP supposedly hovered over the reactor and caused some malfunctions.
And all those reports of UAPs near Malmstrom Air Force Base, where they have all those nuclear missile silos. It's like they're targeting these places.
It does seem that way, doesn't it?
Why?
That's the question, right?
Yeah.
Are they just curious about our technology? Or could they actually be a threat? Some people think they're drawn to the energy coming from nuclear facilities. Others think they might be monitoring our nuclear weapons. Maybe they're worried we'll use them.
It's all a bit creepy, and it definitely raises the stakes. Like, it wasn't already complicated enough trying to understand the government and the military. Now we have to consider the possibility of private contractors being involved, too.
Oh, yeah.
This is getting more and more interesting.
It is. The source material mentions companies like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Bigelow Aerospace, Wackenhut, and SAIC. It seems they could be playing a part in these programs.
Wow.
It just adds another layer of secrecy and raises questions about oversight and accountability. What are these companies really doing? And who's making sure they're doing the right thing?
How deep does this go? We started with rumors and whispers, then claims of evidence. Now we have private companies potentially working on this groundbreaking, maybe even dangerous technology. And then on top of all of that, you brought up this thing called the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, this idea from Hal Puthoff.
Right, the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis. It says that maybe what we're dealing with isn't just your regular extraterrestrials from another planet. Maybe these UAPs are something weirder, something harder to understand.
So we're not just talking about little green men here. What else could it be?
Well, that's what we need to explore.
Yeah.
You provided a lot of really fascinating source material, and it lists some pretty mind-blowing possibilities.
Okay, lay it on me.
You know, before we get into all that, all those other possible origins for UAPs, it's worth thinking about this. If some of these things have been around for a while, wouldn't we have some kind of historical record of them?
That's a good point. And luckily, you included some historical documents that shed light on when the government first got interested in UAPs.
Yeah, there's this memo from 1947 that's really interesting. Supposedly it's from the Director of Central Intelligence at the time, Roscoe Hillenkoetter. This is just a few months after Roswell. And he's talking about needing clear instructions from the president and a coordinated scientific examination of, quote, objects related to what they call the flying saucer problem.
So even back then, in the very beginning, people at the top knew that UAPs needed to be investigated.
Exactly. And this interest continued into the 50s with Project Blue Book. That was the Air Force's official investigation into UAPs. But even though Blue Book officially said there was nothing unusual about UAPs, a lot of researchers, even some of the people who worked on Blue Book, they say it was incomplete at best, and maybe even a deliberate attempt to cover up the phenomenon.
Yeah, we talked about the 1953 CIA Robertson panel, which also seemed more interested in keeping things quiet than finding out the truth. It seems like there is a real effort to keep this whole thing under wraps. There's even an Air Force memo from 1956 that talks about a plan to destigmatize UAP reporting. Some people say that was just another way to control what people knew and prevent them from finding out too much.
It does seem like there's been this tension between the government wanting to investigate UAPs, maybe even use their technology, and being afraid of what might happen if the public knew everything.
It's frustrating, but I guess I can see their point. Can you imagine the panic if everyone suddenly found out we're not alone? Or that reality is way weirder than we thought?
Yeah, I can see that. But it also makes you think, who gets to decide what information people should have? Who has the power to tell us how to understand reality?
It's a slippery slope. But let's go back to some of the more specific and kind of scary things we've found out about UAPs. We talked about how they seem to be interested in our nuclear weapons. Are there any other examples of that?
There's this really well-documented incident from 1984 at Malmstrom Air Force Base. They have nuclear missile silos there. A lot of people reported seeing UAPs in the area, and some even said these UAPs messed with the missiles, caused them to malfunction.
That's terrifying. The idea that something we don't understand could mess with our nuclear weapons, it's like something out of a nightmare. And it's not the only time it happened. In 1967, at another nuclear missile base, someone saw this red-orange, oval-shaped UAP hovering over the facility. And then right after that, a bunch of the base's ICBMs malfunctioned.
It's a pattern you can't really ignore. Makes you wonder, are they trying to tell us something? Are they worried about our nuclear weapons? Or is there something even worse going on?
If we consider the possibility that these UAPs are really advanced technology, or even intelligent beings, their interest in our nuclear weapons is a big deal. Are they checking out our destructive power? Or maybe trying to stop us from using these weapons?
It's all speculation at this point. But it shows how important it is to be open and transparent about this whole phenomenon. If we're dealing with something that could affect our survival, we can't just ignore it.
And it's not just the government we have to worry about. We talked about private contractors earlier, and some of the stuff you sent suggests their role might be bigger than just helping the government. Are there any examples of companies doing research on UAPs? Or even trying to reverse engineer technology from recovered materials?
One name that pops up a lot is Lockheed Martin. Former Senator Harry Reid said publicly in 2021 that he'd been told that Lockheed Martin had pieces of a UAP, maybe from a crash site. And this has been going on for decades. He also said the Pentagon wouldn't let him see the program.
Lockheed Martin is one of the biggest defense contractors in the world. If they're involved, it makes it seem like there's a lot more to this than we know. What about other companies?
Boeing is another big one that's been linked to UAP research. Back in 2002, the BBC reported on this project called GRASP, which stands for Gravity Research Applied to Space Propulsion. Apparently, it was run in secret by Boeing's Phantom Works division.
Boeing said they didn't fund that research, but then they said they couldn't comment on black projects. That's a little fishy, isn't it?
Yeah, it does raise some questions. The fact that these huge companies might be involved in UAP stuff, it says a lot about how important this phenomenon could be. We might be dealing with technology that's way beyond what we can understand. Technology that could change everything, transportation, energy production, you name it.
And if that's true, it makes you wonder even more why everyone's being so secretive about UAPs. If these companies have this amazing technology, why not share it with the world? Wouldn't it be better for everyone if we worked together to figure out these secrets?
You would think so, wouldn't you? But that assumes everyone's being altruistic. What if there are other reasons for keeping this quiet? Well, imagine if one group, a company or a government agency, had control over all this advanced technology. They could basically reshape the world however they wanted, maybe even hurt other people in the process.
That sounds like a sci-fi dystopia.
I know, but it's not totally impossible. And it shows why we need more transparency and accountability when it comes to UAP research. If we're dealing with technology that could change the world, we need to make sure it's used for good.
It's a big responsibility,
Right.
and one that needs a global perspective. We can't let any one country or company control this technology.
I agree. This UAP thing is a global issue, and it needs a global solution. We need countries to work together and share information and resources if we want to figure out the mysteries of UAPs and make sure any technology that comes from them is used to help everyone.
That's a big task.
It is.
But I think it's essential to our future. We have to move past fear and secrecy and embrace the possibility that UAPs could be an incredible opportunity for progress.
I like that. It reminds us that the UAP phenomenon isn't just about weird lights in the sky. It's about the future of humanity.
Okay, so we've talked about the history, the nuclear connection, and the role of private contractors. We've even talked about the good and bad things that could happen if we had advanced UAP technology. But now I think it's time to go back to that ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, the one you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, we still need to talk about those other possible origins. It's time to get to the bottom of this UAP mystery.
Let's do it. Get ready, everyone, because we're about to explore some really mind-blowing stuff. Okay, so we've looked at all the evidence suggesting the government's been keeping secrets about UAPs, but now I really want to get into this ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, this idea that UAPs might be something more than just aliens from another planet. What are some of the alternative origins you were talking about?
Well, one possibility is that UAPs are extra-dimensional beings. That means they could be from different dimensions or realities, which might explain why they move in ways that seem impossible.
Okay, I can get my head around aliens from other planets, but other dimensions...
It's a pretty wild idea, I know. But think about it. Everything we know about physics is based on our experience in this three-dimensional world. What if there are other dimensions out there? Maybe even other universes with completely different laws of physics.
So you're saying these UAPs could be using those other dimensions to appear and disappear, or even travel faster than the speed of light?
Exactly. It's a mind-blowing concept, I know, but it's something some physicists and cosmologists are seriously considering.
Wow. What other possibilities are we talking about?
Another one is that UAPs could be cryptoterrestrials. Basically, intelligent beings that live here on Earth, but hidden from us. They could be in the deep oceans, underground, maybe even in other dimensions that overlap with ours.
So instead of coming from space, they've been here all along. That's kind of creepy.
It definitely challenges our idea of what it means to be alone in the universe.
Okay, let's talk about some of the weirder ideas. Like, these entities some people say are demonic or supernatural. Are we really going to consider that?
Well, we have to be open-minded, right? Throughout history, people all over the world have described things they couldn't explain, beings and phenomena that seem to defy science. And a lot of those stories sound a lot like modern UAP reports.
So maybe what we're seeing now isn't new. Maybe it's just that our understanding of the world has changed. And so have the words we use to describe these things.
Right. What used to be seen as supernatural or religious might now be seen through a scientific lens. even if we don't have the tools to fully understand it yet.
That's an interesting way to think about it. So far, we've talked about beings from other dimensions, creatures hidden on Earth, and even things that blur the line between science and the supernatural. What other crazy possibilities are there?
Well, some people believe UAPs could be time travelers from our own future, or even from a completely different timeline.
Time travelers, now we're really getting into science fiction.
I know, it sounds far out. But physicists have been talking about the possibility of time travel for decades.
So you mean humans from the future coming back to visit us?
Maybe. But there are other possibilities too. What if these entities are from a different timeline? One that's split off from ours at some point in the past.
That would mean there could be tons of different realities out there.
Each with its own history and its own forms of intelligent life.
It's hard to imagine.
I know, it's a lot to take in. But that's what's so cool about the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis. It makes us think outside the box and consider possibilities we might have dismissed before.
And who knows, maybe some of those crazy ideas are closer to the truth than we think.
Exactly. We still don't have all the answers about UAPs. We need to be open to everything.
This deep dive has been a wild ride. We've explored government secrecy, the link between UAPs and nuclear weapons. We've even talked about time travelers and beings from other dimensions. It's been a lot to think about.
It has. But remember, learning is a journey. We might never know everything, but we should always keep asking questions and searching for the truth, no matter where it leads us.
You know, one thing that really stands out to me is that no matter what UAPs turn out to be, it's going to change everything for humanity.
I agree. Whether it's aliens, interdimensional beings, or something we haven't even thought of, knowing we're not alone would completely change how we see ourselves and our place in the universe. It would challenge our beliefs, our science, even our definition of what it means to be human.
That's a pretty big thought to leave our listeners with.
I think it's an important one. The UAP phenomenon isn't just a scientific mystery, it's a philosophical one. It has the potential to change our entire worldview.
This has been an amazing deep dive. Thank you so much for helping us explore this complicated and confusing topic.
It's been my pleasure.
And to everyone listening, thanks for coming along on this journey with us. Keep your minds open and never stop asking questions. Who knows what incredible discoveries are waiting for us out there?